Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry for the Slack notification sounds that you got in between. So yeah, before we start, I know we're already 3 minutes delayed. Just wanted to give everyone here who's joined us right now a quick introduction to what Plum does and why we do it. So Plum, as you know, is your organization's health insurance provider, and Plum Wellness is a well-being initiative with an aim to further a more holistic approach to wellness. So as you know, we host numerous sessions regularly covering various aspects of wellness, such as improving your emotional wellness, finance wellness, intellectual, sexual, and mental well-being. So today, with International Men's Day just around the corner, which is tomorrow, we wanted to focus on what masculinity means today and what it means right now in 2021. And I don't think there's anyone better than our speaker to delve into the subject today. So Nikhil Taneja, he's a Mumbai-based writer, producer, storyteller, teacher, entrepreneur, and a youth mental health advocate. He is currently the co-founder and CEO of a youth media and data insights organization called Yuva that works on creating impact in the lives of young Indians through meaningful content and conversations. He also serves on the Global Advisory Board of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Community Goalkeepers, and is a festival creative director of the India Film Project. That's a very impressive profile right there. So he's, more interestingly, he's writing a book right now on how to take the toxic out of masculinity. It is to be published by Penguin Random House next year, and it is aptly called Be a Man Yaar. So without further ado, over to you, Nikhil.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for having me. I loved how you introduced me and said that there's no one better to have this conversation than me. And I think that's also where masculinity is in 2021, that there are no well-known celebrity role models to speak about masculinity, that you have to get someone who has done many, many other things in life to be able to talk about it. And that is actually, I think I'm not saying this to, just be self-effacing and making taking a little bit of a joke on myself, but this is honestly, I think, a very this is where we are. When you're talking about gender, and when you talk about women, when you talk about women role models, especially when it comes to talking about positive conversations about women, for example feminism, for example gender roles, etc. You'll have hundreds and hundreds of role models and icons who've been speaking about this. But when you think about it for a minute, how many men among the larger public, well-known celebrities, influencers, do you ever think of who speak of men issues? So I think that's really, in fact, a great beginning to what we're going to be chatting about today, that there needs to be far more conversations than already exist right now. But thank you for having me here. Really happy to be here.
Happy to have you here, Nikhil. So do you just want to give a quick introduction about your book first and then get into what we are about to speak to?
So this book is underway. Actually, it's going to launch. We're hoping for it to launch next year on Wednesday, and it's called Be a Man Yaar. It's going to be published by Penguin Random House. The intent of that book is to have a conversation about this version of positive masculinity. Because anytime we speak about masculinity in any conversation in the world right now, it is to do with toxic masculinity, the toxic aspects of it, and for very fair reasons. It's not a bad thing that we're talking about it, because I think to be able to talk about the positive aspects of masculinity, we need to confront and acknowledge that there are a lot of toxic aspects to it, which are not only harmful to others, which we are very aware of. All the conversations even around toxic masculinity are very much about how, when masculinity does become toxic, it harms people around the men who perpetuate it, right? Especially women, and of course all genders, but especially women. But masculinity, when it gets toxic, it's also harmful to men themselves. It's also harmful to the young boys they once were. It's harmful to other men around them, because you're it's a culture then that becomes, so we need to understand as men the harmful effects of toxicity to ourselves, how is not helping us evolve into better versions of ourselves, how it's not helping us introspect and be, to grow more, to learn more, to be more, and be more positive in what we are doing and how we are doing it. So this book in many ways is actually in many ways, I'm trying to write the book that I wish that I had when I was growing up, when I did not have any positive role models, or a way to understand myself as, within the gender role that I was prescribed, that of being a man. I had to grow up trying to find out myself, what did it really mean to be a man? And I want this book to be some sort of a positive manifesto on what it can mean, which is honestly that, if you're human and if you're a kind and decent person, that's all there should be to being a man. Nothing, everything more than that is conditional.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think as someone who's been at the receiving end of a lot of these behaviors that you mentioned, I understand why it's important for men, especially boys, to grow up with positive role models, etc. So what does masculinity look like in 2021?
That's a great question to begin with, and I think so much of that. Let me refer to. So interesting. Veerdas put out a video yesterday, talked about two Indias, right? So I suppose, in my opinion, that even masculinity is about maybe two Indias, or in fact, I would say three Indias. There is a certain urban understanding of masculinity, that happens in the cities. You all are in Bangalore, I'm in Mumbai, in Kolkata, Delhi, Hyderabad, all of these metropolitans. There are certain sections of society that have been able to, because of the access to the internet, because of the access to awareness, because of the access to great knowledge, that's, because of the circumstances they've grown up in, education around them, the impact of having, wonderful female role models, and having access to the understanding of the gender spectrum, they have become more evolved versions of men. So there is a certain kind of masculinity about a man who's not afraid of, asking for help, who's not afraid of talking to about mental health, who's not afraid to cry, who's not afraid to go to spas. That's one kind of a man. There is, of course, a second, scary sort of a, version of a man who's not evolved, as women have continued evolving, as other genders have started recognizing what it means to be, in the gender boxes that they've been assigned. Men have not, unfortunately, certain kinds of men have not been able to understand or introspect what it means to be a man, and they subscribe and ascribe to a certain ideal that has been conditioned by patriarchy, which is that men need to be strong, men need to be angry, men need to, assert their dominance in every situation that they are. They need to, in all the spaces they hold, they need to show that they are the man, man of the house, man of the family. All of these are those roles, because of patriarchy, that are conditioned so deeply into a certain section of men that it's tough for them to escape it. And that turns toxic, and that's the other kind. I suppose a lot of India, and I suppose the majority of India is somewhere in between, where they have grown up in today, and this is where 2021 masculinity is today, where a lot of India has grown up being told that you have to be a certain kind of man. You have to, run your family, you have to run your house, you have to ensure that you're earning more than the woman, you have to do certain kinds of jobs, engineering, medical, MBA, you have to earn a certain kind of pay package, you need to have a certain kind of designation in your life, you cannot talk a lot about your emotions, you need to take everything inside. The burdens of the world are on yourself. You can't be seen as too empathetic, too sensitive, because that will be held against you. You'll be seen as weak, and at the same time, they've also been around, so much education and so much understanding of lovely, wonderful folks around them who are evolved, who have helped them understand, no, that's not true at all. So that unlearning process has begun in some way, but at the same time, that learnings have been so deeply conditioned that you don't know what should you hold on to from what we were conditioned as growing up to what we should kind of now start incorporating in our lives. How much self-care should a man do? How much sensitivity should a man show? How empathetic can a man be? Is it weak to be empathetic? Among your family, among your, partners, what kind of a gender role should be assigned to men? What kind of a role within a family setup should a man take? So now these are the questions that a lot of men are trying to understand and grapple with, I suppose. And I suppose that balance, is still to be struck. And that's where we are, I think, in 2021. We're trying to find this balance, most of us, whereas I suppose there are two other sections who have either very deeply evolved or, very deeply, unfortunately, conditioned to not evolve.
Yeah, I think one of the comment that just came in my own family, my aunt think it's not manly enough for my brother to study art. So that is a phrase, I think you're man enough.
Aditi, I am an engineer. Right now, I am running a media company. My background is in Yashraj Films, in MTV India, in Hindustan Times. So I've spent my entire 13 to 15 years now in media, but I've done engineering. Not because I wanted to do engineering, but even though at 13, 14, 15, I used to write, I used to tell stories, I used to take part in all kinds of extracurriculars around arts. But when I was 17 and I said that I wanted to take engineering, my shut me down and said, when I said I want to take arts, they shut me down and said, "Tum arts kaise le sakte ho? Arts to hobby hota hai. It's not a career." Now, of course, I had to do engineering, graduate with a BTech degree, show them that ye dekho main kar sakta hu. Now, at least now give me the opportunity to do what I want. And imagine in 2021, I graduated. I mean, this happened in 2004 and it's 2021. It's been, 17 years since the last time. And you can see how bad an engineer I am because I had to do the math of 2021 minus 2004. And I was like, am I sure it's 17 years? So yeah, art was for me, and yet, I had to do engineering. And it's still the same problem. 17 years later, it's the same problem.
Yeah, I think it, like you said, it takes time. But I even, we're starting to see some sort of change in the right direction. So I hope that continues. Yeah. So another question was that when we usually have the conversation about gender and gender roles and gender constructs, why is the conversation about masculinity typically about the ill effects of it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think very important question, because I think it's very fair that we speak a lot about the ill effects because they have not been spoken of enough. We have always assumed that, and there's so many reasons for it, so many reasons. Patriarchy, of course, being the most one, that the power was always given in the hands of men. And because of that, every young boy in our country was told that you have to be a man. You have to grow up to be a man. You don't have an option to be vulnerable. You don't have an option to, take up the arts. You don't have an option to show a sensitive side to yourself. You don't have the option to, ho sakta hai, there must be, boys who have grown up who don't want to earn a lot of money, who actually want to, play the guitar or travel the world, or who just want to kind of, for that matter, in today's world, be Instagram influencers, but that's not okay because they are boys, and they have to grow up to be a certain kind of a man who has a certain kind of a gender role assigned to them, that they must, a mission statement. I feel like in our country, what happens is as soon as as soon as a baby in our country is born, they are depending on, what gender is ascribed to them. Of course, now I'm not going to be talking a lot about third genders because, in our country, of course, I think they're the most oppressed, unfortunately. But even if we speak about what has been considered, the most, among our families, the most clear and obvious genders, which is the male and female, the moment a kid is born, basis, the genitals, they're given a set, ke ye ladki hai, ye ladka hai. And then the moment that happens, they are assigned a mission statement in their lives. For the girl, the mission statement very unfortunately has been that this girl at some point in time is going to grow up and is going to get married. That's the mission statement given to girls, that at some point in time, a girl has to be married off. And her entire life from the time she's born to the time she gets married is actually, supposed to be a fulfillment of that. So while she does education, while she does, whatever, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, सबको पता होता है, फैमिली में बार-बार बोलते रहते हैं शादी कब करोगे, अच्छा लड़का कब कहाँ से मिलेगा, अच्छा लड़का चाहिए तुम्हें जिंदगी के अंदर. That अच्छा लड़के के चक्कर के अंदर ना, girls are not supposed to dress in a certain way. They're supposed to speak in a certain way. They can't laugh too loudly. They can't go out too late in the night. They can't have too many male friends. They can't choose something of their liking. They can't go out of the country because, you have to be around your parents. You can't go away too far away. Tum bigad jaoge, etc., etc. The entire life of a girl and a woman in our country when they're born is controlled in the service of this mission statement. Now, this we are starting to understand finally, and we're starting to understand that thanks to feminism, thanks to a lot of young women who have worked very hard on creating communities of positivity around each other, where they're supporting each other, where they're being allies to each other and saying, you know what, we are not going to have, your fate is not going to be the same as the fate of all the women who have come before, who have been forced to just marry, sometimes very young, who are forced to have babies and children, sometimes very young, who have never been given a choice. And of course, if they choose to marry, if they choose to have to do whatever they want in their life, that's absolutely okay. But most women are not given an option in our country, right? So now, but of course, there are choices, there are options, and women are feeling empowered. Of course, this is still a certain subsection. There are a lot more women who need to kind of been brought into it. But we're now understanding this. There is conversation around this. On the other hand, when you think about it, when a boy is born in our country, even that boy is given a mission statement. That mission statement is कि तुम्हें बड़े होकर पैसे कमाने, कि अगर लड़की को बोल जाता है कि तुम्हें बड़े होकर शादी करानी है, लड़के को बोल जाता है तुम्हें बड़े होकर पैसे कमाने. And because you have to earn a certain kind of money, तुम्हारी शुरू से बचपन से लाइफ में is in the service of achieving something. तुम्हें ना अचीवमेंट करनी है, तुम्हें अच्छे मार्क्स लाने हैं, तुम्हें अच्छा करियर अच्छे कॉलेज में घुसना है, अच्छा CGPA चाहिए, अच्छा पैकेज चाहिए, अच्छा CTC चाहिए, अच्छा घर चाहिए, अच्छी गाड़ी चाहिए. All of it is in service of this idea that you have to earn. Why? Because, in the minds of patriarchy, in the minds of a society, the girl is supposed to be, in many ways, the gatherer, whereas the, husband is the hunter. The girl is supposed to be running the household, is the husband is supposed to get money for the household. Now, while girls have realized that even girls can, get money, and even girls can, be hunters, even girls can do whatever men can do, men have not ever had this conversation with saying that you can also chill at home. You can also not have to achieve so much. You can also take arts. You can also do, home sciences. You can also be, vulnerable. You can also kind of live your life exactly how you want it, but not in the service of just making money. That conversation is not being had only. So there is no positive conversation about masculinity in our society. While there is feminism, which is a positive conversation for women, of course, feminism is supposed to be equality for all genders. Unfortunately, men have never been able to, for whatever reasons, there is a certain understanding that has come that, feminism is not for men, which is false. It is for all genders. But whatever it is at least helping women, empower themselves. But where is that positive movement that tells boys in our country that you don't have to grow up to be the men who have to be, who have to prescribe through these gender roles, who have to earn a certain amount of money, who have to, get a certain kind of job, who have to do engineering, who have to do MBA, who have to, be a certain kind of a man as they grow up, a strong masculine person who has to dominate over everybody, who has to be the strongest person in the room, and whose strength is going to be seen as the most important thing about him. And because we're not having that conversation, that toxicity is inside of every man. It is inside of every boy whose dreams have been shattered, who's been constantly told कि तुम्हें यही करना पड़ेगा, and there's no safe space for that boy to express. कहाँ express करेगा? Imagine if a boy in our country tries to express to another boy, वो तो मजाक उड़ाएंगे, अरे तुम क्या बात कर रहे हो? तुम्हें वैसे नहीं कमाने, क्या करना तुम्हें? ये बनना है, तुम्हें वो बनना है. अच्छा तुम आर्ट्स करोगे, तुम्हें राइटर बनना है. अच्छा ठीक है, अभी तो चलो ठीक है. It's still been seen as something cool now, thanks to some movies, thanks to Instagram, etc., etc. It is at least now evolved a little bit. But when I was growing up, even Chetan Bhagat did not exist. So, I didn't even have that as an example. So for me to tell my parents that I want to do writing, and they had a question, तुम पैसे कैसे कमाओगे? मुझे पता नहीं था. I don't know. I actually don't know. So how do I explain to them that this is a viable field? So, it is the toxic conversation is there because of the fact that there are just no other conversations that are happening among young boys, that are helping young boys find safe spaces to express themselves, to be vulnerable, and to find out and introspect what it means to be a man, and so that they can become better human beings, so they don't have to be defined to gender. I think it's very important that we are having this conversation, because once we acknowledge and confront it, only then will we be able to go beyond it and introspect, which is not happening right now. Everybody's getting angry about the fact that toxic क्यों है. Only if we accept it and say yes है, but the reason for that is, and I love this, there's this line that I had read somewhere, which I just absolutely love, that patriarchy benefits men, yes, but it oppresses all genders, especially when they're young. And that's how it is. It is actually oppressive to young boys who may not want to become the men that society wants them to be.
Yeah, I think, that's actually a very information insightful. I think you were talking about how masculinity evolves from boys to men.
Yeah.
So I think my next question would be, how does parenting contribute to this? How does parenting contribute to the men that boys will eventually become?
यार हमारी अब देखोगे ना एक certain kind of subsection of society के अंदर and upper caste society के अंदर there is this idea of a Sharma-ji का लड़का तो वो बचपन से ही बता दिया जाता है कि देखो वो एक शर्मा जी का लड़का, you have to be better than that person or like that person, and this is whether that Sharma ji ka ladka is the neighbor's son, whether that's your cousin, sometimes it's your elder brother, sometimes it's your younger brother, it could be anybody, but you're always compared to that one ideal person, that ideal boy or young person that you have to kind of try to be like. And if you're not like that person, then you're a failure. अगर तुम उसके जैसे नहीं हो तो तुम क्या करो जिंदगी में? अगर तुम उसके जैसे नहीं बन पा रहे, उतने मार्क्स नहीं ला पा रहे, उतने ऑलराउंडर नहीं बन पा रहे, वो इतनी ट्रॉफीज नहीं ला पा रहे, उतने पैसे नहीं कमा पा रहे, तो तुम्हारा क्या फायदा लाइफ के अंदर? And this comparison starts happening with boys at a very young age, and it is unfortunate that there is no शर्मा जी की बेटी और लड़की इक्विवेलेंट. किसी को नहीं, लड़कियों की बहुत अलग इश्यूज होते हैं, but it is also patriarchy that they are not considered important enough to even have another person they're compared with, because they're thinking अच्छा तुम्हारी एजुकेशन तो इंपॉर्टेंट है ही नहीं, तो मतलब शादी करनी. बट लड़कों को बिकॉज इट इज कंसिडर्ड दैट लड़कों को बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है सोसाइटी के अंदर, बड़े होके इनको घर चलाना है, बड़े होके इनको जो है ना हमारे एंड ऑफ कोर्स इवन द नेम, द सरनेम्स वी हैव, I mean these are such complex issues. Think about it, the surnames we have, they come from the man's side of the family, right? And who, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into this, but why is it that it is women who take the men's names and not men who take the women's name? Why is it that it's always the men's rootedness that comes out, and there is no reason for it. That's the only the difference about it. ऐसा कोई reason नहीं है. ये patriarchal norms, these patriarchal norms have existed from very, very long, and they continue existing at this point of time. And we've never challenged them. We have never questioned them. And because we have not questioned them, parents have kind of considered, their parents also told them the same thing. Their parents also told them the same thing. For generations, parents have been told, ki this is how men should be, this is how women should be. And they've just agreed and accepted and just gone on and explained. Fortunately for the new generation of young people, very fortunately, because they have access, because they have awareness, they're challenging these stereotypes. They're saying, why do I have to get more marks than this person? Why can't I be good at video games, for example? Why can't I be good at streaming? What if I want to start a startup of my own? Why do I have to do a typical MBA? Why can't I do online learning and start something of my own? Why can't I actually write on Instagram and see where whether I get viral or not? Why can't I do reels? Why can't I do stand-up comedy? Why can't I do something sustainable? I don't want to join a capitalist organization. I want to work at sustainability. Now these are things that finally, because the internet has given examples saying that we were told that the world has to be a certain way. That's what our parents were told, and that's what they told us, that this is the way the world behaves. Young people today are able to fight back and say that's not true. I have hundreds of examples on the internet which show that the world does not have to behave in a certain way. It can behave in any way we want it to be. And that's now I think the roots come from this thing that we were never questioned. We never questioned, and our parents never questioned. We've never questioned these stereotypes. Now that we're questioning, we recognize that there is a lot that we don't have to actually do, that is not sacrosanct, that is not set in stone, and we can do better if we question, and we get to do what we want to do if we start questioning. So yeah, I think that's a really important perspective, that to start questioning these norms.
Yeah, I think when we were young, we were too scared to question our parents.
Exactly.
And I think earlier you were mentioning about the role of social media and even books that sort of shape masculinity. So what do you think is the role of pop culture in shaping the way men think and feel, especially in India?
Think about it. I mean, what for the longest time, And and I've been a part of Bollywood, okay? And so I've been with Yash Raj Films for 3.5 years. And I mean, I will start by saying that it has been a fantastic place for me to work at. I love that organization. I've got my greatest successes in life at Yash Raj. At the same time, while being part of Bollywood, I was very aware of what Bollywood has normalized for so long, and that normalization is now, we are the only country in the entire world, Aditi, where the lead actor in a film is called the hero. The lead actor is called a hero. Why is the lead actor called a hero? I always used to wonder, hero kyun bulate? And the reason for that is, that it is the Indian middle class boy who's the lead actor in typical all films. And in our society, in our patriarchy, the person who is the Indian middle class man is a hero anyway. Not only is he a hero, he's actually a superhero. And that's also why we don't have superhero films in our country. Because in every film, the hero does some absolutely phenomenal things that Superman, Batman, and all of the superheroes internationally do. You don't need somebody to wear a cape. You just need to be an Indian man. And if you're an Indian man, you can achieve anything. You can save the world. You can defeat the villain. You can save the girl, and always, obviously, the girl needs to be saved in our stories, and this normalization of tropes, that there is the girl in an Indian movie, is always just, waiting to be saved, is always just, the role of the girl is typically just dancing. She's just singing. She's just dancing. She's waiting to fall in love, and she's waiting to be saved. Whereas the hero always has this obstacle to overcome. And as he overcomes his obstacle, he also saves the girl, saves the day, saves the world. And this normalization of a narrative, कि girls का role ये है, boys are supposed to be like this, girls are supposed to be like this, girls are supposed to just wait to fall in love, whereas boys are supposed to come and rescue girls and defeat villains. That's something that every young person who's growing up starts thinking, that I'm a hero only. And when you can't be a hero, imagine you're not the kind of guy, I mean, there used to be a dialogue, at Amitabh Bachchan made famous, called Mard ko dard nahi hota. Men don't feel pain, and you grow up with these narratives, you start imbibing them inside of you, you start believing that this is who I am. As an Indian man, I'm supposed to be a hero. I'm supposed to save the girl. And then what happens when a girl says, I don't want to be saved by, sorry. Then the guy starts feeling like, okay, what is my role in life anymore? If there are no villains to defeat, what does the guy do? I don't know. You have to create villains in your life then. That's where the toxicity comes from. You're like, acha, villain in here, what do I do right now in my life? So these narratives have gone so deep. And of course, these narratives unfortunately also sexualize women. I mean, in the songs and dances, the girls in Bollywood are actually, the songs are called item numbers. And the girl is supposed to be an item and the song is supposed to be a number. And this is the normalization of a certain kind of male gaze, which is just so terrible and sad. And we still don't have enough conversation about that. Even till date in 2021 also, even in the films that are supposed to be most woke, you have at least 3 numbers where you have women in skimpy clothes dancing while men around them are just cheering. That's still today the way to sell a film, a market a film, no matter how woke that film is. And until we start overcoming these narratives, recognizing that that anybody can be a hero. In fact, we are seeing films that women are leading in the last 4 or 5 years, some really tremendous films. But the truth is that when those films are coming out, if you have seen the headlines about those films, they are women-led films. You don't call a film that has a male hero as male-led film. No, you never say that. But the moment you have a woman as a primary protagonist, you call female-led. Why? Because it's a warning to the audience that this is a female-led film. There is not going to be a traditional male hero. Don't get afraid when you come in. So it is actually to kind of make sure that nobody gets the wrong impression. But there's not going to be a typical action sequence where the hero is going to come and defeat and save the girl. Yeah, here the girl is going to try and save herself. So you need a new narrative called women-led films. Otherwise, you would have just said it's a film. But this normalization again of gender roles are not only harmful for women, they're also very harmful for men. And they make men and women feel that there are certain roles in society that they must ascribe to. And in time, sometimes you get in, sometimes you actually achieve those roles. which can be great sometimes, which can be terrible sometimes, and sometimes you fail in those roles, which can be great sometimes and terrible sometimes, because there are no narratives that tell you what happens when you fail to be a hero, what happens when you fail to be strong, what happens when you fail to be the masculine macho man, just like, the 6-pack or 10-pack abs of everybody in films. What happens then? So until, again, pop culture need to do better. Our films need to do better. We need to tell better stories. In fact, that's one of the reasons that I even eventually ended up quitting Bollywood, starting Yuva. One of the things that I really, really wanted to do, because I work a lot with young people, was because I was constantly hearing young people also getting affected by these narratives and getting mental health issues, because they genuinely started believing that this is who they should be and then failing to be that. So Yuva, in fact, has started, with that in mind. How do we tell better stories that represent authentically the young Indian person, and not a version that they must be, so that they can be seen as good Indians or good men or good women?
That's actually very commendable. I'm happy to hear that, that those kind of conversations are starting around, and there is a place that men can go to, or anybody can go to actually have this conversation open up. So I think we spoke about masculinity in 2021, how pop culture affects it. So I think the $1 million question in the current situation we are in right now is, how does masculinity come into play in the workplace?
Yeah. So Aditi, again, I think so much of this comes, and I suppose, see, this is true for all gender roles, right? Everyone is conditioned to be a certain way, every single person, and some of us understand that conditioning and then try to do better by unlearning some of these conditioning. And some of us have never been able to overcome, because we don't acknowledge or recognize this condition. And then we fall into certain traps in the workplaces. So for men, it is very important that they get a certain designation. It's very important that they get a certain pay package. So they are willing to work, in a certain way. They're willing to, sometimes by hook or by crook, get to, a certain place in your of power, because power is seen to be the most important thing that a man can own. And to be able to get there, sometimes, and this is where well-being comes in, right? You are hustling all the time. There is a certain culture right now, which we have been so happy to talk. I mean, everybody talks about it as a badge of honor, hustle culture. But when you think about it, is that a good thing? Is it good to be part of a culture where you're constantly hustling, where you're constantly trying to, you're not taking any care, you're not taking any rest, you're constantly stressed, and of course you mask it by having this adrenaline pump, saying that, I've done this today, I've done that today. That's great, but when you burn out, after 200 days of the same, behavior without taking any breaks, any rest, what happens to your body? Are you able to continue working at the same pace? Or do you have to then go to doctors and take pills? And I'm saying this because this happened with me. I'm saying this as a first person thing. I have, when I entered the media industry, as somebody who had now done engineering, but then left it, I had to prove to my parents that I'm capable of doing, media, and I'm capable of earning money. It wasn't about doing well. It was about earning a certain amount of money. So even though in Hindustan Times, as a journalist, I was doing really well. I have interviewed all the Khans, Shah Rukh, Salman, Amir, everybody. I was an entertainment journalist. Amitabh Bachchan, I've done all of that, right? Then I went to MTV. At MTV, I was the youngest, show producer in MTV's history. At 24, I got my own show. I have produced films at MTV with Anurag Kashyap, Anurag Basu, Rohan Sippi, Sudhir Sarkar, Nikhil Advani. I got into Yashraj at a very early age. I was the youngest GM at Yashraj at 30. I've done all of this. There was a point in my time where you also mentioned I'm part of the Global Advisory Board of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I got that opportunity, and my lowest of lows, Aditi, you will not believe, happened when I was invited for a conference in New York called the Goalkeepers Conference in 2016, 2017, where I was, where the keynote speaker was Barack Obama. Okay, Barack Obama, Justin Trudeau, Malala. These are the keynote speakers. They were like, I would say, like 20 meters in front of me. I was sitting in the front row. I've been invited as a delegate. I've been identified as an emerging leader in India, okay, among the media industry. And on that day, was the first time I got a panic attack. It was the first time that my anxiety became so much that I couldn't get up from the bed in the morning. And the reason that I had gotten a panic attack was because in my head, what was playing was that I have reached here now. I am 30 and have reached this place. What if there is nowhere to go after this? What happens next? And I had no answer. I was like, okay, I've reached this pinnacle of my career, and I actually got anxiety thinking that I have nothing else to do after this. What if I am not? What if after going to this, session, I make a fool of myself? If I had started having imposter syndrome, and what if, I go back defeated, and my life, this is it. This is all there was to be. So the problem with living a life according to milestones, and which is what happens, which is how you work in the workplace. When you have so many goals and plans and milestones that men feel that we need to achieve, when you don't achieve them, there is always failure looming in your head. So you get stressed and upset and sad about that. Your mental health gets affected. You get depressed. And on the other hand, when you achieve them, and achieve them maybe too early or achieve them in too great a way, then you start getting anxiety about what next. It's not like you finish a milestone and you're like, acha, ho gaya, now I can retire and I'm chill. No, once you reach a milestone, the goalpost shifts again. And then you're like, okay, now I have another goalpost to go to. Then I have another goalpost to go to. How many goalposts before you think it's enough? How many goalposts before you say that, okay, I'm happy? How many goalposts before you say that, okay, this is, now I'm going to rest? That never happens. Rest is not built into our minds. Rest is always seen as, weakness. Rest is always seen as, something that people who are not strong do, but strong people are always hustling. And that's what we need to defeat. You can be a high performer in the workplace without having to kill yourself. You can do really well in your work and your job while building breaks, not only in your life, but in your daily routines. You can make sure that even if you're honestly, and all studies point to this, even if you work a certain amount of day, but in a focused manner, you don't actually need to work till 12 in the night. It's actually counterproductive to you. Your brain starts not performing as well. Your body gets tired, and that affects you in so many different ways. So actually, how to be healthy and productive? To try genuinely to build in rest. And not look at work as the be all and end all. Work is important, no doubt about it. It helps us build who we are, our names, our careers, but it is one part of your life, and it is not your whole life. And men don't understand this. And as soon as I think men start understanding this, they will actually start doing better at work also. Because when you're more refreshed in your life, when you have when you have space for yourself, when you have space for your loved ones, when you have space for your friends and your interests, you end up using that inspiration to kind of do better work as well. So this is, a very, very important aspect that men need to understand. But unfortunately, again, very little conversations around this.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. I think the conditioning that we receive to always hustle is so strong that what you just said is a good place to start for men to, and not just men, I think everyone, to overcome this particular conditioning. One question that came in the chat box is from Priyanka. How do we normalize this to our parents and older generations? Because considering their exposure to such topics and their barrier of beliefs.
Yeah. I love this question, Priyanka, and I get this question very often, and this is something I've struggled with in my life as well. So I'm going to tell you what I did. Okay. So, I'll start by admitting that for a very long time, I did not, in my early 20s, I had a very tumultuous and troubled relationship with my parents, because I just felt like they didn't understand. I wanted to do so many different things, but they kept reinforcing this idea of what they expected out of me as a man, which at that time I did not know was a patriarchal thing. They were just like, "Tum MBA kab karoge? When will you do an MBA? When will you do an MBA?" And I'm like, "I'm doing media. I think I'm doing well in media. If you give me time and space, I will earn a lot of money here also. I don't need to do an MBA to do well in creative fields." But they just were after me. They just wanted, I was doing really well in the jobs that I was doing, but they just felt like, I'm not earning enough as the neighbor's kid who has gotten into IM and who's gotten into ISB and who's done, some fabulous, has gotten a great designation. Why is my designation not as good, etc., etc. And I just felt really let down, felt really like upset that my parents don't believe in me, that my parents don't understand me, that I feel like I'm doing well enough. They should be supporting me, but they don't get it. And because of that, I had a lot of, many years where I couldn't even talk to them properly. And what changed actually for me was therapy, and it's surprising, like, how do I have a better relationship with my parents? First, by having a better relationship with myself. I started going to therapy. I started figuring out, why was I so angry all the time? Why did I have this toxic relationship with my parents? Why did I have anxiety? Why did I why was my mental health doing so badly when I was actually at 30 one of the youngest high achievers in the media industry that I was part of, right? And the way that therapy helped me was, it helped me recognize that, not only do I not have a good relationship with myself, so I am not able to first be at peace with myself, and the moment I started doing that, I started recognizing that there are so many things I've been conditioned, that I have just started to understand. Imagine the conditioning my parents have, for like, who have 30 more years on. And when I started doing that, I think when I became more empathetic to my own experiences, I started becoming empathetic to them. Because till then I thought they were the villains. And then I started realizing, no, they are not the villains, society and the patriarchy is the villain. It is a societal expectation that is put on parents, to be a certain way, like it is put on children to be a certain way. If we are conditioned to be a certain way, even they were conditioned to be a certain kind of parent. And once I had empathy for myself, I had empathy for them. And I think the final thing I'd say over here is the way that my relationship with my parents got repaired. And I think now I have a very positive, very healthy relationship with them. In fact, I feel like we're very good friends now. Was when I actually took the step of, instead of talking to them and telling them, here's where I think you're wrong, I started listening to them. I started asking them questions about their lives. I started asking them, when you were growing up, what did you face in your life? Can you tell me about the issues that you went through where you felt your parents didn't understand you? Can you tell me the roles that you were asked to play in my society that you were not okay with? It took a lot of time for them also to be vulnerable or to speak about what they went through. But I think they started. And as we exchanged our stories, as we exchanged, our life anecdotes, we started recognizing that both of us have in many ways been, have gone through these conditionings. We have been victims of patriarchy in many ways. And that has helped us kind of start understanding each other better. Just like they were asked to be a certain way, I was asked to be a certain way. Just like they were asked to, be a certain kind of parent, I was asked to be a certain kind of child. And yeah, listening, I think, is a very, very healthy, very lovely aspect of connection that we don't really exercise much. We believe a lot in talking, but I think we should also, I feel, lead with listening. I hope that helps, Priyanka, but it's a great question. I really hope that, you and everyone over here is able to have these conversations with their parents.
That was super helpful, Nikhil. I think a lot of us, including me, had that doubt in our minds how to carry this conversation of the parents. We'll take one more question from the chat before we move on to the next topic.
Sure.
This is something I also resonate with. Could it be that women empowerment is sometimes interpreted in a wrong way, because it sometimes it directly translates to making women like men? So what is your opinion on that?
I'll first say that I don't think my opinion on this matters. Okay, you should be asking this to the many fantastic women leaders in our country. I feel like men are always opining on things that they don't have any expertise in, and men like to pretend that they know everything, and we don't. And I think that's a very healthy thing to say out loud, that mujhe nahi pata. I don't know. I wish I do. I just feel like, honestly, instead of speaking to women or to men, I feel like every person should try to introspect and find the balance in their own minds on, what they're capable of, both within the workplace and what outside of it. What are their limitations? And limitations are sometimes really good. Limitations are not bad. When you know your limitations, you work in a way to maximize what you can do well and to not do the things that you do badly. So I will speak from a very general perspective. I feel like, women are better suited to answer questions about women. And I think like men should just try and kind of, hand over to women when this happens. Aditi, if you have something to answer to this, I'd love to hear from you.
That was a test you passed. Well answered.
But if
Okay,
you
so
have, I'm really, I'd love to hear your opinion if you have one on this.
so I think definitely on the same lines, like women empowerment is something we should, I don't think we should compare ourselves to what a man's standard or what the society standard of what a woman should ideally be. Once you sort of understand and realize that what yourself you are capable of, once you kind of zone out all the society's opinions and what they expect of you, expectations from your family, extended relatives, their relatives. Once you sort of zone all that out and actually try to have a conversation with yourself and understand what you're good at, I think that's the only person you need to compare yourself with, like past version of you. Nobody else.
I agree with you, Aditi. And that's the best answer. And I couldn't have given it as well as you have. So thank you.
Great. Thanks. Okay, so I think we spoke about the toxic masculinity. What are the problems that it will create in the workplace in general with other people? So how can we redefine this? How can we what does a more positive masculinity look like as we go forward?
Yeah. I think I spoke about limitations. I think it is, to begin with, it is about starting to it is about introspection. Number one, get to know yourself better. To be a better man, be a better person, be a more introspective person, be a more internal person. Try to understand what it means to be you as a human being first. I feel like it is so sad that in our country, boys are asked to be men before they are taught to be humans. And I feel like that's just tragedy. That we are not even teaching basic humanity to so many of the to children in our country, but telling them, here are the gender roles, be a man first. So let's try and understand, look inwards, try and understand, what does it mean to be a human being? How can we be a better human being to begin? Should I be kinder? Should I be more decent? Should I move on empathetic? Not only to others, to yourself. What are the areas that I'm too hard on myself about? What are the areas I'm not very hard on myself about? Hold yourselves accountable. Try to understand, where am I going wrong? And again, I feel like, unfortunately, so many of these conversations men have actually with the women in their lives, where I believe that you should have these conversations first with yourself. Try to be your own friend. We've always, again, it's seen as wrong or weird or not cool for people, especially men, to kind of enjoy their own companies, to kind of in fact, you would actually, if you read some fantastic autobiographies of people, great leaders who are men, they would always talk about the benefits and the advantages of just spending time with yourself as a man and trying to learn things about yourself. So I would say, to kind of be more positive and have a better try to understand your masculinity better, acknowledge your troublesome traits, acknowledge where you're going wrong, confront it. Very, very important. Acknowledge your limitations, not because you can't push them, but because first you should know what your limitations are before you start pushing them, and then trying to see where do you get. Don't subscribe to the gender roles that have been given. Question. Why to what end do I need to be doing this? Why do I need to be doing this? To what end do I need to be doing this? If someone tells me that my goal in life is for to get to be the next, to make a unicorn, sure, you should make a unicorn. No one's saying that your company and startup shouldn't make a unicorn, be a unicorn. But is that what you as a human being are going to love the most? Or is that just something you're doing because 20 other people are doing? And if you genuinely feel like that you're passionate about what you're doing, you will anyway end up making a unicorn. And I'm giving you this in just pure startup terms, but I'm just, like, there is a race that is happening around us that, we don't even question why we're running it. We're just running. We don't know what the end is. We feel like there are goals, and the goals keep shifting as we keep running. We don't know why we're running this race. We don't know to what end we are running, but we are just constantly running. Pause. It's very important to take a pause. It's very important to introspect. It is very important to acknowledge, to confront, to understand, and then, understand yourself. And therapy helped me. if there's anyone over here who feels like, they're not able to do it through spirituality, they're not able to do it through meditation, they're not able to do it through, spending time with yourselves, what's really helped me is therapy. I think it's one of the most wonderful things that, any man in our country, any person in our country can kind of do. There's so much conditioning that happens, when we are growing up in India, that I feel like, a lot of that conditioning just comes out and really helps you become a more evolved, better, kinder, more decent person, version of yourself. So yeah, so whatever it takes for you to understand yourself, start there, and then just kind of keep doing better, but don't try to, put that burden of you being a better person on others. Don't demand it. Don't ask the emotional labor to other folks in your family, to other folks. Sharing is one thing. Putting that burden on others, saying that you need to help me become better, that's not how it should work. We need to hold ourselves accountable and being better. And I'm telling you, if you're kinder to ourselves, if you're kinder to folks around us, that's exactly what it means to be a better man, because that's what it means to be a better human being.
Thanks, Nikhil. I think that was such a wonderful answer. One of the questions in the chat box is, I think, to all the mums and dads in the call. Sumit has said that parenting plays an important role in what the next generation makes of the society. So what, in your opinion, are the top 3 actionables for a parent of a young children or young man?
Just a second. I think, just give me 1 second. Can you speak again, Aditi? Sorry.
So, okay, sorry. So it was a question from the audience that I think it's for the parents in the call. What are, in your opinion, are the top 3 actionables for a parent, a young man or a young boy?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think it's come from Sumit. So thanks, Sumit. Great question. I feel like, again, I don't have children myself, so I can't speak really to what it means to be educating a young, boy, but or a girl for that matter, any person of any gender. But I feel like I do know where, I think when I was growing up, I was failed in some way, not from my parents, but through parenting. And I feel I was failed when I was, not heard. I feel like we are not, I think it's very important to hear young people. Just because they're young does not mean that their voices don't matter. Just because they're young does not mean that their ideas don't matter, that their hopes for themselves, their aspirations for themselves don't matter. Yes, they do not have the experience that you may do or I may do, but they definitely have a passion. They definitely have dreams. They definitely have hopes, and I think we should hear them out. And I think that start with listening. I feel like leading with listening is always great. Second, and this is just an overall thing, I feel like we should just be kinder to young folks. I feel like every young person, of course, make mistakes, and I think parenting, it's not easy to be parents also. I acknowledge that. At the same time, of course, it's not easy to grow up in a country where you may want a certain thing and your family may want a second thing, your society may want a third thing, the internet around you might want a fourth thing. In fact, if you look at the world right now, social media has so much pressures and expectations that is also putting on young people, that it becomes very difficult to find out who you are and what your identity is. So just kind of being more empathetic to the experiences of young people today, that they are growing up in a very high pressure environment where they're constantly expected to be better than everybody else around them. So just be kinder, allow them to kind of take their time. And the third thing I would say, don't compare. Again, these are just I think we compare people around. I think this is just an innate thing. We compare ourselves, we compare our our young ones, we compare everybody with each other, saying that, why am I not better than him? Why is she not better than me? Why are they not better than this person? And I think that just everybody has their own journey. Everybody has, takes their own time. Everybody has their own way of growing. Just there are no markers to when somebody should be doing what they should be doing. Just because it has been told by society that getting, you need to earn a certain amount of money at a certain amount of time does not make that, set in stone. There are people who may not have earned that kind of money, who may be really happy. And there are people who may earn that money and be very unhappy. So both things can be true. Allow people to find their, who they are at the timelines that they can. So I would say that this, be kind, listen, and don't compare. Just allow people to find themselves, especially young people. Don't put timelines, basically.
Thank you. Thanks, Nikhil. Wonderfully answered yet again. Thank you so much for coming and doing this with us. I think this answered a lot of questions, a lot of men, and generally not men, women, everyone had about masculinity in current age and this year. And if I think this is a good place for a lot of people to at least start thinking about what they can do differently and how their masculinity can serve them. So thank you so much for coming to Plum again. I hope to see you again here soon. Thanks everybody for joining. We will see you on our next session. That's next Thursday. Thanks again, Nikhil.
Thanks so much, Aditi, for having me. Thanks, Plum. Thanks, Anji. I just want to say all the people who asked questions, thank you so much. And I saw a lot of those questions are actually, women only, which also kind of, and I hope like I'm not misgendering anyone, but a lot of them seem to come from women and not too many from men, which also kind of also is self-explanatory, right? We are also as men afraid of asking questions. We're afraid of, in chat sections be seen as vulnerable, that if I ask a question, what will everybody else think, and that's also something we need to overcome. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to kind of let people know that you are curious about your own masculinity, and unless we ask questions, we are not going to get the answers. And sometimes those questions should be to others and sometimes they should be to ourselves. So yeah, I've seen that in a lot of conversations, Aditi. So many conversations about gender and especially masculinity, and it's always women or people from other genders who have more questions than men themselves. So
I hope this
and the questions from men come in my DMs, so they don't come publicly. Yeah, but they come later and they come in DMs, but not in public. But I hope that changes. But thank you so much for having this conversation. It's really important that we do. And thank you for having me. It was really lovely being here. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone. It was
Thanks
really
so much, Nikhil. Thanks everyone joining us today. Have a good night. Thanks again, Nikhil.
Good night. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye.